when I became a lawyer, I said, I want to be a trial attorney. And by 2008, the economy was sinking.
Yeah.
The lowest person on the totem pole gets tasked with be that guy. But not only fire people, also hire and motivate the good employees to stay.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the MISHRM Resource Partners Podcast. It's really, we should call it a video cast going forward because we are on video, and you'll not just get to hear us, but see us. And as always, I'm Greg Coyne, your host for today's video cast. And with me today is someone I love being able to call a friend, and someone who is really exceptional at what they do, and it's James Reid. He is a partner over at Dinsmore, and they are located in Ann Arbor and Troy, and has been a longtime member of MISHRM. And James, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate you hosting.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it too. This is fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I have been for a while because you bring a lot of energy to what you do, and I know that law and employment law may not necessarily be what some people think is the most exciting topic, but it's incredibly important. So before I jump in and go down that road, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Dinsmore and what you do for them in that sense?
Sure. So first, I actually think employment is the most exciting topic.
Figured that.
All right. And I think a lot of people in the human resources world would realize the stories they see are stranger than fiction. And
Like
there is a lot of on your toes, a new fact pattern you didn't anticipate.
Sure.
So what I do at a high level is a lot of spotting employment issues, trying to resolve them before there's litigation or before there's turnover. And our firm Dinsmore is actually nationwide. We have 29 offices coast to coast.
Nice.
And so I love the ability to also call a hotline if I need a California expert to give me a quick handbook supplement or tell me if there's any unique laws in certain states, so that we can quickly give tailored advice to the client.
Love it. And here's something else too that I'm kind of curious about. I mean, it's not like most attorneys don't go to law school and say, hey, you know what? I want to get into employment law.
Right.
I think it's a great plan for me. Not that people don't, but it's typically not the route. So kind of help us understand, how'd you even get started going down this path?
Great question. And you're right. I had no interest in being an employment attorney when I was in law school.
I appreciate the honesty, appreciate the candor.
I thought a lawyer is someone that litigates in court.
Right.
And so when I became a lawyer, I said, I want to be a trial attorney. And quickly, I started my internship in 2004. And by 2008, the economy was sinking.
Yeah.
And really, it was like the least amount of law school applicants ever. And the only way to really stay employed was to find the hot area. And the hot area at the time was what they call right-sizing companies, which means firing a lot of people.
Sure.
And the lowest person on the totem pole gets tasked with be that guy. No one enjoys firing people. At least most people don't enjoy firing people. It depends on the circumstances, of course.
Absolutely.
And so from there, I essentially helped solve problems where I could help right-size companies, but not only fire people, also hire and motivate the good employees to stay. And I think there was a lot of culture, like if you hang in there for me and help me overcome this hardship, when we recover, I'm gonna remember the loyal, trusted, hard workers that helped us overcome. And I came up with some phantom stock agreements and various executive employment agreements where I could create trust in the workplace, knowing that if they were ever fired without a good reason or cause, then they wouldn't have the restrictive covenants apply to them, or they'd get a good severance.
I like it.
And so that way it's fair to both sides.
Okay, so let me segue then into that, because right now, I always like to call it corporate bingo, where it is retention.
Yes.
And you spoke to that.
Yep.
What have you seen with regards to companies? And obviously, you're not going to name names, but what are some of the things you've seen in terms of some positive push towards retention, and even some problems with it? Because I know that people are dealing with that right now. So
as far as the positives, a lot of companies are actually investing in their team, not just showing them how to do the job at hand, but how to move up the ranks and achieve the employees' goals. Almost that reverse seminar. What do you want to get out of this job? What are your goals? How can I help you get there? And show them that career path.
Nice.
And if they invest in trainers like us that come in and can coach them and help them see the chessboard better than they currently see, they realize that their company's investing in them. The education value is worth more than making a couple dollars more across the street.
Yeah.
And as far as the negative, I think too many companies are just throwing money across the board at people.
Yeah.
And I think that's bad for multiple reasons. One, a lot of people want that work-life balance. They'd rather keep the same pay and just have less pressure on having to be in the office, all hours of the day.
Yeah.
And I also think, second, a lot of these employees don't want to be treated the same. If you're a rock star and you're doing better work and more productive, you should get paid more and not just have a new baseline to satisfy the workplace.
Yeah, I love that answer. And again, thank you all for being here. It's James Reid from Dinsmore. One of the things too that I wanted to touch on, because that was a great answer, is the fact that what makes you different. And I think I know the answer. I don't want to steal your thunder, so to speak. But I've seen some things that really I feel like you and Dinsmore separate yourselves from the competition. But I'd like for you to speak to that. What makes you different from other organizations that that companies might want to reach out to?
I feel my primary job is counseling. So
Okay.
I'm an attorney and counselor.
Oh,
and
nice.
what I mean by that is I think a lot of lawyers say, cut and paste, here's the law, decide what you want to do next.
Yeah.
And I'll actually say, here's the law, but I'll counsel you to help you achieve your goal the safest, most legal way possible.
Yeah.
And actually recommend a path to go forward and not just say it depends, pick one of these 5 choices. I think that helps. And then second, I really treat every client as an A-plus client.
Yeah.
I focus those relationships because I want to grow with them over the next 30 years, and I believe a lot of my clients are in that growth pattern. So I don't just give top attention to the billionaire companies.
Sure.
I give everybody top attention, and by building those relationships, it makes the employees more comfortable sharing the skeletons in the closet. Because if you're too formal and that stereotypical lawyer, it's a little bit awkward and embarrassing to say they're sleeping with their assistant or whatever's going on in their company.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you spoke to that, because that's a difficult task for any law firm or attorney to really do, especially in employment law. Is typically you're invited in when there's a problem, and you spoke to relationships. So, what's one way, or even a couple ways, that you make those employees, those companies, feel comfortable in what most might perceive an uncomfortable situation?
So I don't give widget advice.
Yeah.
I give tailored advice, and I feel like I actually ask the reverse seminar questions to understand the chessboard. I understand all the pieces, all the employees, how it all comes together, and I explain, one, there's an attorney-client privilege, so whatever you tell me is confidential and will not be known. But second, I explain that if you don't tell me all the skeletons, I can't advise you on the best practice. If you have these skeletons, maybe I would have been able to settle that case for a few $1,000s, have the employee go away.
Yeah.
But by not telling me any of those things, and now we just terminate without any severance offering or investigation, now they could bring a claim that potentially wasn't investigated. So I can't really give you the best next chessboard move if I don't understand the full chessboard.
Yeah.
And I think they quickly learn that, and a lot of them call me, I ghostwrite. Almost half my practice is they say, here's an issue, and then I ghostwrite the email or the actual paper that the HR director hands to the employee. And so the employees don't even know legal's involved most of the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
I'm happy to give HR credit, or I can be or I'm also the accountability guy.
Okay.
So I bless the decision.
Yeah.
So don't take their unconscious bias. I did it based on the facts, and I don't know all the personal things going on in your company for the most part.
Sure.
So that was not factored in the decision to terminate.
So let me ask, because I want to stay on that relationship conversation, because I've seen it both from people that are clients of yours and people that aren't. You establish very strong relationships with the people that you meet. You're very approachable, you're direct, you're candid. I love that about you. And one of the things I'm curious about is just think about maybe one or two of the best relationships you have with a client. How did it get there? What made it that way? Because I think there's some people wondering that, hey, how do I have a relationship with my law firm, my attorney? It may be you, but it may not be. How did you get there?
It started with not trying to get the home run in the first meeting.
Yeah.
And not trying to tell them what I think they need when I don't already know them well.
Sure.
So it's more just asking the right questions. What keeps you up at night?
Nice.
And if that stress is not something I can solve, why don't you refer you to come in and train their sales team, or refer someone else? And just by referring other trusted advisors, that builds trust with that client. And now all of a sudden they feel like, wow, that felt good. He solved a problem. Now when they have the next problem, regardless if it's employment related or not, hey, do you know anybody? I had someone call me, you know anyone that's good for personal, insurance? Like, how would they know that I even know anybody that does that? So like, you just want to be that person that you can go to with questions, and you can't nickel and dime a client. So if you are spending time getting to know them or their company, that's not billable time. You only bill for value added time.
I couldn't agree more, and I think you nailed it down in a sense that it's value add, all right, and really taking a overall look of what they need, and you've become trusted advisors to people. So let me ask this question as well. You're seeing a lot of stuff right now. I brought up retention, all right, and so what do you feel, if you had to pick one, what do you feel is the hot button issue for employers right now outside of retention in employment law?
It is trust,
okay,
which is somewhat related to retention, but let me explain.
Sure.
So I see people posting on social media, I stand with Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I think we got to be careful. There's people that are Russian or in Russia that don't necessarily want a war.
Yep.
And if we all of a sudden have a perception we're discriminating against Russians, that's not legal.
Yep.
When there was COVID, there was some blame towards the Asian population. That's not legal. When there was talk about building a wall, people felt like some people from South America were taking jobs. We can't allow any of these protected classes to be factored into the workplace decisions, and I believe there is unconscious bias going on.
Okay.
And if they don't have the training to help see their unconscious bias, it enhances the perception that people are getting treated differently based on considerations that are not supposed to be factored in. We can't stereotype groups of people. Everyone should be judged by who they are and based on performance.
Nice. So, and what could potentially, and most of the people watching will probably know, but just in case, what forms of liability could that open up a company to?
Yeah, so first check and see if you have EPL insurance, which is Employment Professional Liability Insurance.
Okay.
But Tesla just had a case where somebody was calling someone the N-word.
Oh, geez.
And HR came in and said, I think it's shop talk. I think they were joking. It wasn't meant to be with ill intent or hate. It was just, poor, bad taste jokes. The employee quit and sued and got a $130 million jury award, the largest single plaintiff of all time.
Wow.
So I think the point is, if we see employees that feel like they're being picked on, whether it's at work or off work, and we put our head in the sand like that ostrich picture, that's going to look bad if it ever goes to court. And I would highly recommend having all managers take an unconscious bias training, because if HR doesn't fully, know what's going on in the company, they need to rely on the eyes and ears of all of the management.
Gosh, that's great stuff. And here's the thing. I'm gonna change gears a little bit. One of the things you've talked about is relationships, and I always want to allow our guests to give the people online a little bit more of who we are. So, one of the things that I was curious about was, if you had the opportunity to have dinner with 3 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, 3 people, living or past, that you could, who would it be and why? And so I kind of want to find that out for everyone online today.
Sure, no, I really appreciate that. So, a lot of people would pick celebrities
Sure.
and things of that nature. I am very fascinated by family roots. So I'm James McGregor Reid IV.
Yep.
And I never met James McGregor Reid I that kind of came from Scotland to America.
Yeah.
Or James McGregor Reid II. And honestly, my dad is who kind of motivated and shaped me. So it'd be fascinating to have all of us together at a table and just see, how far the, fruit fell from the tree and just see the synergy and differences. I think I would really appreciate. But as far as like who motivated me growing up, I was a big fan of like Shaquille O'Neal and Hulk Hogan.
Really?
And He-Man, all that, all who's tough and powerful, was something I was always excited. But I think that I'm always a family first guy.
That's cool. And I know that, genealogy and understanding your roots is something that you're big on. And it's pretty cool that is incorporated in the your 3 people.
Absolutely.
So before we part ways today, what I'd like to find out is, number 1, how do people get in touch with you? And number 2, what's one thing that HR professionals can keep an eye on, kind of protect themselves outside of the things you already mentioned? So
Great.
how we go there?
So to contact me, I love to take advantage of technology.
Yeah.
And so my cell phone's always available, 734-649-1313. And all of your compound questions, it's like a tricky lawyer deposition. But on what HR should look out for, I really think HR should not do it alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most claims are coming from, is this one decision maker had unconscious bias or factored in something they shouldn't. So I'm a big fan of committees. And whether your committee is a diverse board in your company or a couple outside consultants, if a committee makes the decision, that's a pretty solid defense that not everybody on that committee wanted to take that adverse action for illegal reasons. They probably had legitimate performance-related reasons.
Yeah, great stuff. And James, I really appreciate you being here. Again, James Reid, partner at Dinsmore. You can find him online, cell phone, Ann Arbor, Troy. Reach out. He is a huge and powerful resource in the HR community. Thank you again for being here. And thank you all for being with us. Again, I'm Greg Coyne, and thank you again for joining us on the MISHRM Resource Partner Podcast. Until next time, thanks and take care.